I had been driving for nearly an hour through roads covered in ice, the trunk of my car filled with gifts and the casserole Daniel always loved, humming to myself just to keep the loneliness at bay, telling myself that at least Christmas would be warm and full of family. My son had been through so much since that car accident 2 years ago left him paralyzed, and all I wanted was to see his face light up when I walked through the door with his favorite food. But the moment I turned onto his street, the joy drained out of me and my chest tightened because something was wrong. Daniel's house glowed with lights and music carried faintly into the night, but at the end of the driveway I froze, gripping the steering wheel. Because there he was, my son, sitting in his wheelchair on the porch, with snow piled around him, his sweater clinging damply to his shoulders, his lips trembling as his breath came out in sharp little gasps. I shoved the car into park, ran out, and my boots cracked against the ice as I threw my coat over him, whispering his name in panic. "Daniel, my God, what are you doing out here?" Before we continue, comment below and let me know which state or country you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thank you. His teeth clattered together so hard I could barely hear him when he whispered, "She told me I had to stay outside." I pulled the collar of the coat tight around him, my throat burning with disbelief. "What do you mean, stay outside? Who told you this?" He lowered his head, ashamed, his voice breaking. "Emily, she said I ruined everything. She said I make everyone uncomfortable." I felt my body trembling, not from the cold, but from a fury I could not contain. Because while my son sat there turning blue, the windows behind him glowed with warmth. Shadows of people raising glasses, laughter rolling across the walls as if life was perfect inside. My hands clenched his frozen fingers, trying to rub warmth back into them. "How long have you been sitting out here?" He coughed and whispered, "Since before dinner." She told me I was not welcome at the table. I pressed my lips together so hard they hurt because I knew if I screamed, the whole street would hear. "You're not welcome at your own table on Christmas. She put you out here while she—" I turned my head toward the window again, and that was when I saw her. Emily, my daughter-in-law, standing at the head of the table with a glass of wine in her hand, her dress shimmering under the chandelier, smiling at a man seated close beside her, his hand brushing against hers like it belonged there. My knees almost gave out. The casserole dish slipped from under my arm and hit the porch with a dull thud. But I did not care. My son's body shook against me, and all I could hear was the laughter spilling from that house while he whispered, "Mom, please do not make a scene. He will only get angrier." My throat ached as I lifted his face toward me. "Angrier? Daniel, you could have frozen to death out here." His eyes darted toward the door, and the way fear covered his face told me everything I needed to know. That this was not the first time he had been pushed aside. That this cruelty was something he had been enduring in silence. I kissed the top of his head and whispered, "Not another minute," rising to my feet with a strength I did not know I still carried. My heart pounded as I wrapped my arm around his shoulders, guiding him toward the door. Every step I took across that porch felt heavier, my breath sharper, because the voices inside grew louder and clearer. Jason, that was the name I had heard Daniel mention months ago with hesitation, a so-called friend of Emily's. And now here he was, seated at my son's table, his laughter mingling with hers like Daniel never existed. I gripped the door handle. Every nerve in my body set alight, and the words formed in my chest before I even knew I would speak them. I would not beg. I would not plead. I would demand. I yanked the door open, the warmth flooding over me in cruel contrast to the bitter cold outside. And every face at that glittering table turned toward me, frozen in shock as I stepped in with my coatless, trembling son at my side, my eyes locked on Emily, raising her wineglass in Jason's direction. The blast of warmth from the open door nearly knocked the air out of my lungs, not because of comfort, but because of the cruel contrast between where my son had been left and what I now saw spread out before me. A long dining table glistening with silverware, candles flickering and plates piled high with food. The sound of clinking glasses cutting straight into my chest. Daniel's wheels squeaked as he moved slowly behind me, his head lowered, and every pair of eyes at that table froze when they saw us standing there. Emily's wineglass slipped in her hand, but she caught it quickly, her eyes wide for a second before her expression hardened as though she had been caught stealing but decided to brazen it out. Jason sat right beside her, his chair pulled close, his hand resting casually against hers on the table until he noticed me glaring, and then he pulled it back with a smirk that made my skin crawl. My voice came out harsher than I intended, shaking from fury. Why was my son outside in the freezing cold while you all sat here eating? The silence that followed was so heavy, I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Emily's motherly tone, the one she often used to disguise cruelty as reason, slipped from her lips. He did not want to come in. He said he needed air. Daniel raised his eyes, his voice. That is not true. You told me to stay outside. My chest tightened when I heard the tremor in his voice, the shame he carried even in defending himself. I stepped closer to the table, my hand resting firmly on the back of his chair. You locked him out while you had company. On Christmas. Jason leaned back lazily, crossing his arms as though none of this mattered, his voice slow and arrogant. Maybe you should calm down. He does not belong here tonight. My hand gripped the chair until my knuckles ached. Not belong here? This is his house, his family, Jason shrugged. He makes everything uncomfortable. Emily is allowed to have peace in her own home. I stared at my daughter-in-law, hoping to see regret in her face, but instead she lowered her eyes and gave the slightest nod. Confirming his words, Daniel whispered beside me, Mom, please let us go. But the humiliation in his voice only fueled my rage. Sit there and tell me again, I said through clenched teeth, that my son does not belong at his own table. Emily finally spoke, her words brittle. We were trying to have a nice dinner. He makes it hard. My head spun, my thoughts crashing into each other. The table looked like something from a magazine, but all I could see was the empty plate at the far end. A card with Daniel's name written neatly as if mocking him. Set out but never meant to be filled. My voice cracked. Not from weakness, but from the weight of the betrayal. You sat here pretending to be a family while he froze outside, and you all thought that was acceptable. Jason's smirk returned, and he leaned forward with a tone that dripped arrogance. You are disrupting the evening. Maybe you should leave. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. But instead of stepping back, I moved closer to the table, my voice steady now, sharpened by fury. The only one leaving will be you if you keep talking. Daniel's hand tugged at my sleeve, a silent plea not to escalate, but I could not stop, not after seeing his blue lips and trembling hands. Jason's smirk widened, and he looked straight at me as he repeated his words slowly, as if to carve them into the air. He does not belong here. Those 4 words shattered whatever thin restraint I still held, and I felt a fire rise in me that would not be put out. Daniel's hands trembled against the wheels of his chair, and I could feel his shame pouring into the room. But before I could speak, Emily pushed her glass away and snapped, her voice sharp and filled with bitterness that had been waiting for the right moment to surface. Do you want to know why I asked him to stay outside? Do you really want to know? Because this is not a marriage anymore. It has been 2 years since that accident, and I have been living like a prisoner in my own home. My breath caught in my throat as she raised her chin, her words cutting into my son like blades. Daniel whispered, Emily, stop. But she pressed on, her voice climbing. I am 32 years old. I still have a life to live, and I am not going to waste the rest of it pushing a wheelchair and cleaning up after someone who cannot even walk to the bathroom without help. My heart sank, and all I could do was look at my son, his eyes glistening, his lips trembling as he whispered, So that is how you see me? I stepped closer, my hand resting on his shoulder, but he shook his head gently, his voice breaking. Mom, I knew. I knew she had someone else. The night she left saying she had errands. The time she never showed up for my therapy. The days I sat waiting for her to pick me up after appointments, and she never came. I knew. His words poured out quietly, and I felt guilt stab through me for never pressing harder, for trusting her when my instincts had told me something was wrong. Emily slammed her napkin on the table and leaned toward me with eyes burning. Do not you dare look at me as if I am the villain. You think I have not sacrificed enough? Every day I watched my life slip away while he sat there, blaming me for being tired, blaming me for wanting more. My voice shook, but I forced it steady. He never asked you to sacrifice your life. He asked for love, for loyalty, for the vows you made when you promised to stand by him. She let out a bitter laugh. Those vows ended the day he stopped being the man I married. I did not sign up for this. Daniel's breath hitched, his hands covering his face. Emily, I loved you. I never wanted this accident. Do you think I enjoy needing help? Do you think I wanted to watch you drift away while I pretended not to notice? His words were raw, stripped of pride, the kind that leave a mother's chest aching. For a moment I saw the boy he used to be, open and vulnerable, hoping someone would say he was enough. Emily's eyes flicked toward Jason, who nodded slightly, giving her silent permission to finish what she had started. She straightened her back, her voice cold and final. I already filed for divorce. Papers are ready. This marriage is over. My breath caught, but Daniel's reaction was worse. He lowered his head, shoulders sagging, his entire body shrinking under the weight of her words. And when he spoke, his voice was nothing more than a whisper. So, you were just waiting for the right moment to tell me? She crossed her arms. I was waiting for you to face reality. My heart pounded, anger rising. But in that moment, I saw something else too. A flicker of fear in Emily's eyes, as if she knew her cruelty had gone too far, and there would be no way back from what she had just said. The silence after her confession pressed down on me like a weight, and for a moment I could not breathe. Then Jason leaned forward with that smug look that made my stomach turn and said, There is no point dragging this out. I am moving in. We already agreed. My hands clenched at my sides, but before I could answer, Daniel's voice cracked, soft and broken. So that is it? I am being replaced. Emily crossed her arms, her tone clipped. Do not say it like that, Daniel. You know I have needs. You know I cannot waste my best years waiting for a miracle that will never come. His shoulders sagged, as though every word she threw at him drove him deeper into a place I could not reach. He whispered, Maybe you're right. Maybe I do not deserve happiness anymore. My throat ached hearing him speak like that, and I bent closer, cupping his face, trying to force his eyes to meet mine. Do not you dare believe that. You are not the problem here. Jason smirked, sliding his chair back as if to assert his place in the house. He is the one holding everyone back. She deserves better. I spun on him, fury rushing through me. Better than loyalty? Better than a husband who fought every day to stay alive after that accident? Who gave you the right to walk into his home and decide his worth? Jason only shrugged and poured himself more wine as if my words were nothing. My eyes darted to the Christmas tree in the corner, glittering with lights, boxes stacked neatly underneath. I walked over, scanning the tags with shaking hands, and my heart clenched when I saw not a single gift with Daniel's name. All of them were for Jason, his family, and even Emily's co-workers, as if Daniel had been erased from his own Christmas. I turned back, my voice shaking. Not even one present for him. Do you know how cruel that is? Emily's face tightened, but she did not answer. Daniel's voice floated weakly across the room. She stopped buying me things last year. Said it was a waste since I cannot go anywhere to use them. I felt bile rise in my throat, my mind spinning as realization after realization crashed into me. This was not just neglect. It was a plan. A deliberate effort to erase him piece by piece until nothing of him remained. I stepped toward the table, gripping the back of a chair for balance. You even changed his medical papers, did you not? I saw my number taken off as his emergency contact. Why would you do that? Emily's eyes flickered for the briefest second toward Jason. Then she forced a cold smile. Because you meddle. Jason is here now. He can handle it. My chest burned with fury. Handle it? You stripped me from my son's care and handed it to this stranger while you lock him outside in the cold. How many more ways will you betray him? Jason slammed his hand against the table and stood. His voice low but sharp. Enough. Either you sign over this house, or we start the process to have him placed in a care facility by New Year. Those are the choices. My blood ran cold as Daniel gasped beside me, his eyes wide with terror. And in that instant, I knew I was staring at people who had no limit to their cruelty, people who would discard him like broken furniture if it suited their needs. Daniel's gasp hung in the air, and I reached for his hand, gripping it tight. But Jason leaned closer across the table, his voice low and deliberate. "You heard me. If you do not hand this house over, we will make a call and have him placed where he belongs. A care facility will be glad to take him in, and you will not have to worry anymore." I turned to Emily, searching her face for a hint of shame, but she only tilted her head as if she had rehearsed this moment. "It is not cruel, Maggie. It is practical. He cannot live like this forever, and we cannot keep dragging ourselves down with him." My throat burned, and I could feel my nails digging into my palms. "Dragging yourselves down? He is your husband, Emily. You vowed to love him, to stand by him, and now you talk as if he is a burden you need to throw away." Her eyes narrowed and her voice turned sharp. "Do not you dare lecture me about vows. Those vows died the moment he stopped being the man I married. I have carried this weight for 2 years, and I am finished." Daniel's fingers twitched in mine, his whole body trembling as tears spilled down his cheeks. "Emily, how could you say that to me? I fought to survive that accident. I thought I was fighting for you. For us?" His voice cracked, and the sound nearly broke me in two. Emily did not flinch. "You should have let go then. At least we both would have been free." I felt the air leave my chest, and my knees nearly buckled. But I held firm because my son was looking at me with the desperate eyes of a boy who needed saving. "Mom, please," he whispered, "do not let them take me away. I will die in one of those places." I bent down, pressing my forehead to his, my heart aching as I whispered back, "I promise you, Daniel, no one will ever take you from me. Not while I am breathing." Jason scoffed, pouring himself another drink. "You talk tough, but the law is on our side. We can prove he cannot manage on his own, and once that is on record, he will not have a say." I straightened, my eyes burning into his. "Then you have not met me yet. Try to take him, and I will bury you with the truth." Emily's fork clattered against her plate, her voice rising. "You think anyone will believe you? You are just an old woman clinging to a broken son. No one is going to fight your battles." I steadied my voice, forcing strength into every word. "You're right about one thing. I am old, and I have spent my entire life fighting for this boy. I will fight until my last breath, and you will regret underestimating me." For the first time that evening, Jason's smirk wavered only for a second, but I saw it, and it gave me the smallest spark of power. Daniel squeezed my hand weakly, whispering, "Mom, please do not fight them alone." And I leaned close to him, my voice steady. "You are not alone anymore. They wanted to break you, but they did not count on me being here." The room felt smaller, darker, every eye on us, and I knew we had crossed a line there was no coming back from. Emily's lips curled into a cold smile, her voice low and venomous. "Then prepare yourself because we are not done. Not by a long shot." The moment Emily hissed those words about not being done, something in me shifted, and instead of shaking with rage, I felt an icy calm settle in my bones. I looked at Daniel, his face streaked with tears, his body trembling, and I knew I had to find something that would turn the balance back in our favor. While Jason poured himself another drink and Emily muttered under her breath, I quietly reached for Daniel's medical folder that was sitting half-tucked on the sideboard where Emily usually left important papers. I pulled it open, my hands shaking, and inside I found envelopes, bills, and bank letters stacked together. The first page made my stomach drop. "Emily," I said slowly, holding up the paper, "care to explain why there are thousands of dollars missing from Daniel's disability account?" Her eyes darted toward Jason, her face draining of color. "That money went to household expenses," she said quickly, her voice sharp. I slapped the papers down on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "Household expenses? These are receipts for handbags, vacations, restaurants." You forged his signature. "You stole from your own husband." Jason laughed softly, shaking his head as though none of it mattered. "You think anyone will care? People like him cost the system more than they give. We are just evening things out." My hands trembled as I pointed straight at him. "Evening things out? You stole his lifeline. Money meant for his care. Do you have any idea how sick this makes you sound?" Jason's parents, who had been silent up until now, looked horrified. His mother leaned forward, her voice uneasy. "Jason, is this true?" He waved her off. "It is none of your concern. Stay out of it." But his father spoke firmly. "It is our concern when you sit at this table while that boy was freezing outside." "You disgust me." Emily tried to regain control, her voice desperate now. "Maggie, you do not understand. I was drowning. I needed help. And Jason gave me that. I did what I had to do." My voice cracked with fury. "You did not have to betray him. You did not have to leave him shivering in the cold while you filled your closets with stolen money." Daniel's voice broke in, fragile, but steady enough to matter. "So, it was true. All those times I asked about missing funds, about the unpaid hospital bills, it was you." Emily turned toward him, her tone suddenly defensive. "Do not twist this, Daniel. I took care of you when no one else would." His voice rose with more strength than I had heard in months. "You did not take care of me. You broke me." My throat tightened as I placed my hand on his shoulder, whispering to him, "They will not get away with this." Then I turned back to Emily and Jason, holding their lies in my hand. "You thought you had him trapped, but you made one mistake. You left proof." Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. "What are you going to do?" I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up. What I should have done months ago. "I am calling the police. I'm calling my lawyer. And by the time I am done, everyone will know what you did to him." Emily's face went pale, her glass slipping from her hand and shattering on the floor. Jason's smirk finally faltered as he leaned forward, his voice tight with anger. "You would not dare." I pressed the call button, my eyes locked on his. "Watch me." The phone was still in my hand when the knock thundered against the front door, and for the first time that night, Jason's smugness slipped as the color drained from his face. Emily darted toward him, whispering frantically, "Say nothing." "Let me handle this," but her voice shook. I opened the door and let the officer step in, my chest tight but my voice steady. "Thank you for coming. My son has been left outside in freezing weather while his wife and her lover hosted a party. I have proof of financial theft and neglect." One officer nodded, asking calmly, "Can we speak with everyone here?" Emily shot to her feet, her tone desperate but sharp. "This is ridiculous. She is twisting everything. I am his wife. I have cared for him day and night. If anyone is guilty of neglect, it is her for interfering." Daniel's voice rose behind me, quivering, but strong enough to cut through the tension. "That is a lie. She left me outside for hours. She stopped buying my medical supplies. She spent my disability money on herself." The officer turned to him gently. "Can you explain more, son?" My throat ached, watching him gather the courage to keep going. "She locked me in the garage last month when she had friends over. She said I embarrassed her. She has told me more than once that she wished I had not survived the crash. Tonight she said I should have let go back then." His words hung in the air like broken glass. Emily shrieked, "He is exaggerating." "He is confused. You cannot trust him." Jason's parents, pale and shaken, stood abruptly, and his father's voice cut across the chaos. "We saw him outside tonight, shivering in nothing but a thin sweater while we ate. We asked about it, and Jason told us not to worry. This woman is not exaggerating. We saw it with our own eyes." Jason clenched his fists, barking, "Shut up, both of you. You do not understand." His mother stepped back, shaking her head. "We understand enough. What you did is unforgivable." One officer gestured for Emily to sit, his voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, we will need to see financial documents and speak with your husband privately." I placed the stack of forged papers on the table, my hands steady for the first time all night. "Here is everything. Bank statements, forged signatures, unpaid bills." She drained him dry while denying him care. Emily's face went white as the officers examined the documents. She suddenly lunged toward me, her voice breaking into a scream. "You are destroying my life. He cannot survive without me. He will crawl back when you fail him." Daniel's voice came again, quieter but firm. "I would rather die than ever go back to you." One officer stepped behind Emily, pulling her arms back as she kicked against the floor. Jason tried to intervene, his voice booming. "This is all a mistake. She was just overwhelmed. You cannot arrest her for trying to cope." But the other officer stopped him, his tone sharp. "Sir, you will need to come with us too. There are financial crimes and neglect charges here, and you are directly involved." Jason's jaw tightened as he turned toward me, hatred in his eyes, but I refused to flinch. "You think you have won," he spat, his voice low. But this is not over. My hand rested protectively on Daniel's shoulder as I answered, "For you it is." The officers led them both out, Emily thrashing and screaming while Jason glared back in silence. The door slammed shut behind them, and the room felt unbearably still. The only sound was Daniel's uneven breathing. I crouched beside him, taking his hand in mine. His grip was weak but steady, and tears welled in his eyes. "Mom," he whispered. "Am I safe now?" I squeezed his hand tighter, my own eyes stinging. "You are safe, my boy. I will never let them near you again." Yet, as I held him close, I knew Emily's last words would not leave me because her venom was not just anger. It was a threat, and something deep inside me told me that our fight was not truly finished. The quiet after the police left lingered in the house like a heavy fog, but for the first time in years, I felt a strange kind of peace in my chest. A fragile sense that maybe I had finally pulled my son out of the nightmare that had been suffocating him. Weeks passed slowly after that night, and though the scars were still there, life began to take on a rhythm again. Daniel moved into my home, and at first he apologized endlessly, whispering, "I do not want to be a burden, Mom." Every time I made him tea or adjusted his chair, I always answered the same way, pressing his hand into mine. "You are not a burden, Daniel. You are my son. You are my reason." We spent our days in small routines, laundry folded together on the couch, me guiding his arms during stretches for therapy, cooking soups and casseroles that reminded us of better years. I often caught him staring at the floor, his voice low when he said, "I do not know who I am without her, even though she hated me." I would answer softly, "You are more than what she left behind. You are still here, and that is enough." The first time I saw him smile again was when we decorated my little tree, just the two of us. He struggled with the hooks on the ornaments, his hands unsteady, and I teased gently, "Crooked or not, it is perfect." He laughed, a sound I had not heard in so long it nearly broke me in two. But even in that warmth, I felt a shadow of doubt creep in. The memory of Emily's last words echoed in my head, her voice hissing that I would regret this. I pushed the thought aside, choosing to focus on the glow in Daniel's eyes. Slowly, he started therapy again, working with determination that amazed me. One evening, he said, "I want to go back to school, Mom. Maybe I can study online. Maybe even try the adaptive program they told me about before." My throat tightened as I nodded. "Then we will make it happen. You have so much left to live for." The months turned into a year, and though not every day was easy, the house was filled with something it had not held in so long: hope. On Christmas Eve the following year, we sat by the fire in my small living room, the lights from the tree casting soft colors across Daniel's face. He turned to me, his eyes glassy but steady, and whispered, "Mom, thank you for saving me, for not giving up when I almost did." For the first time since the accident, I feel alive again. My breath caught as tears slid down my cheeks, and I pulled him into my arms, whispering back, "You were never gone, Daniel. You just needed someone to remind you who you are." His head rested against my shoulder, and I realized then that this Christmas was not about the gifts under the tree or the food on the table. It was about the simple truth that love had survived betrayal, and though the wounds would never fully disappear, we had finally built something new out of the ashes. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, the worst was finally behind us.